Welcome to the Vital Spirit podcast. I'm Dr. Kelly Livingston, a naturopathic physician and your guide to a new health reality, one that connects body, mind, and spirit. Together, we'll dive deep into the art and science of holistic healing. Through working with hundreds of women through midlife transitions, I've discovered something profound. Most of our physical and emotional challenges are rooted in a maladaptive stress response. And true healing begins when we regulate our nervous system. Each episode will explore complex health topics in simple, empowering ways, uncover the deeper wisdom within each of us, and share practical tools for nervous system regulation to help you awaken your vital force and create lasting wellness. So, if you're ready to reconnect with yourself, your health, and your purpose, let's begin this journey together so you can experience life more fully human and deeply healed. Hi, and welcome back to the Vital Spirit podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kelly Livingston, and today's episode is a very special one. What if you've done all the right things? You've run all your labs, taken your supplements, changed your diet, you've gone to therapy, and you're still not healing? What if the reason isn't that something's missing in your protocol, but that your nervous system doesn't feel safe enough to heal? This is the conversation we're having today. How regulation may be the missing piece, and how the Safe and Sound protocol helps us restore it, and even more specifically, how understanding our nervous system state can give us the language to heal. I recently shared this as a continuing education lecture for the Connecticut Naturopathic Physicians Association, and now I'm bringing that same teaching to you. Whether you're a practitioner or a wellness-minded woman seeking deeper healing, we're exploring a vital question. What if the biggest obstacle to healing isn't a pathogen or a hormone imbalance? It's not about finding the perfect protocol or supplement, but it's actually related to a dysregulated nervous system. At the heart of this conversation is the Safe and Sound Protocol, or SSP, a sound-based neural regulation tool designed by Dr. Stephen Porges, the founder of Polyvagal Theory. Let's dive in. In naturopathic medicine, we're taught to remove obstacles to cure. I talk all about this in the first 2 episodes on the principles of naturopathic medicine and the therapeutic order. Traditionally, this might look like clearing toxins from the body, removing pathogens, food triggers, or stressors. We talk about this in Recognize and Remove, the first pillar of the gut-brain axis and the Vital Spirit method, right? But in the modern world, the primary obstacle that I see again and again is a nervous system stuck in defense. If your system is in fight, flight, or freeze, no amount of supplements or the perfect protocol will land. You can't detox if your body doesn't feel safe. You can't digest and repair and heal or connect with other nervous systems if you're constantly in a survival state. That's why I say that nervous system healing is the new terrain healing. When we're talking about the terrain and our vis, right, our vital force, that innate ability that our body has to heal, again, all of my first few episodes are all about this. When we're talking about that, we're talking about a body that is getting into a healing state. Again, you can go back and listen to that episode on the vagus nerve and really start thinking about your health goals, maybe some of your medical health history or some of the emotions throughout the day that you're kind of curious about where they come from, or the stories you tell yourself, really anything related to mental, physical, emotional, or spiritual health. And you can start to look at it through the lens of the Polyvagal Theory. What does that mean? So Polyvagal Theory 101, Polyvagal Theory has a few organizing principles or core concepts that are key to understand the Safe and Sound protocol. So Polyvagal Theory was developed by Dr. Stephen Porges, and essentially it maps our autonomic nervous system as a hierarchy, not a binary. So you might remember the autonomic nervous system from some previous episodes where we're constantly scanning our environment for safety or danger. So we're scanning internally. This is interoception. We're scanning externally. We're scanning between nervous systems. Is that person safe? Is this environment safe? And our autonomic nervous system is going to respond, and we can be in 3 states. So we actually have talked before about sympathetic fight or flight, and we've talked about parasympathetic, right? I even mentioned the enteric nervous system, which is essentially the communication that our gut is having with our nervous system, and Certainly communicating with the vagus nerve, right? Now, our vagus nerve can be divided even further into ventral vagal and dorsal vagal. So let's start with the three states, okay? Let's consider ventral vagal, that I am safe. We're engaging in connection. We're curious. We're compassionate. We're feeling joy. We're safe, right? Now, we can get mobilized or triggered into fight or flight. We might feel anxiety, the sense of urgency or tension. We might get mobilized into anger. Or if we are mobilized even beyond our capacities, we might be in dorsal vagal freeze or shutdown. And that might look like collapse or numbness or depression, disconnection. Now, your body is moving through these states. The point is not to constantly be in ventral vagal, although that sounds really nice, but based on cues of safety or threat as you're scanning the environment, and Dr. Porges calls this neuroception, so looking for safety inside, outside, and between, your body's going to respond. Your nervous system is going to respond to keep you safe. This is not mental or emotional, it's actually biological. And healing happens when you're in ventral, when you're in that safety, connection, curious, digesting, repairing, healing state. So, what is the Safe and Sound Protocol, or SSP? The SSP is a non invasive sound based listening therapy. It delivers filtered music through headphones that are specifically designed to stimulate the middle ear muscles and the vagus nerve. Or I should say, the frequency of sound is designed to essentially exercise or work out your nervous system so that you're moving in and out of that social engagement ventral vagal state. So it's engaging the social engagement system and the cranial nerves involved in that. The headphones are just headphones like these if you're watching on YouTube, and they're specifically non-noise canceling over the ear headphones. The filtered frequencies are going to train your nervous system to better detect cues of safety, helping you to shift from chronic defense into regulation. So, the frequency of the music, which is between 400 and 5,000 hertz, is essentially going to kind of put you in the state that the voice of your mother might if she used those kind of soft, prosodic cueing, oh, hi, baby, how are you? Or how you might talk to a dog or your pet, oh, would you like your dinner? Or anyway, that's, I think, how I sound or sounded when I was speaking to my daughter when she was an infant. But you get the point. We're expressing safety to another nervous system, and essentially we're co-regulating with that nervous system. Now, the Safe and Sound Protocol listening is structured into three phases. So when I'm initially working with a patient that I think might be a good candidate for this protocol, I might introduce them to the filtered music with something called Connect. Now, this is not going to have the therapeutic effect of the filtered music in the next phase, which is called Core. So in the core listening, there are 5 hours of listening, and you essentially are titrating the treatment because the exercises are going to get a little bit more intense as time goes on. The filtration is going to change, and you are going to be moving in and out of that regulated or potentially dysregulated state a little bit more as the listening goes on. So it's 5 hours long in the core protocol. Now, when I first started using this, you didn't really have much option around the music. It was just one playlist and you would listen to it and that was it. Now there's lots of different playlists, different types of music, but all of them are filtered in an active filtration when you're in the therapeutic core phase. Now there's a third phase called balance where you're basically maintaining the positive changes that this neural exercise had for you. Each phase is titrated, and the results can be profound, even with just a few minutes at a time. So, I definitely do counsel patients around when they're first starting to listen that they might notice changes in their nervous system. They might feel a little dysregulated or tired or have dreams that are altered or affected, or their digestion might change a little bit. And so, really starting to listen to your body and how it responds to the listening is key. And I do go really slowly. We go slow to go fast. It helps when you're thinking about the Safe and Sound Protocol to understand the organizing principles of polyvagal theory a little bit better. So let's go back to that hierarchy of our nervous system. We had ventral vagal, safety, safe and connection. We had sympathetic mobilization, fight or flight, and we had dorsal vagal, immobilization, or shutdown. Essentially, we move down that ladder when we're under threat, and then we move up that ladder as we recover from threat and we're regulated again. So, as our body is looking to get back to homeostasis after a stressor, we might move down into dorsal vagal immobilization, and then we're going to move up into sympathetic mobilization before we're in that ventral vagal safety. Now, there's overlap of these stages and phases as well. So, play is one situation where there's an overlap of ventral vagal and sympathetic mobilization. So, it's not so much so that you're only in one state ever, but definitely humans will have a state of their nervous system that feels like home. So, when I say to a patient, if I mention these descriptive words around nervous system states and I say, where have you found yourself for most of your life when you're under stress? They will have a home state that they're pretty comfortable with being in or they tend to go to. And as you're listening to the SSP music and the filtration is changing and you might go in and out of states, if you've never felt safe before or never been in that ventral vagal safe co-regulation, as you mobilize, you might feel a little bit dysregulated. So again, that's why we titrate. That's why we go slow. And that's why I ask patients how the experience is for them and make sure that it's a positive one and it's not dysregulating them further. Now, I mentioned this before, this concept of neuroception. So, your nervous system is constantly scanning your environment for threat or safety without you even thinking about it. Your autonomic nervous system, remember, is that automatic nervous system that's controlling your heart rate, your breathing, your digestion, your immune system, inflammation in the body. And you're not thinking about any of those things. So, neuroception is again looking for safety or danger within your body, outside of your body, and between your nervous system and another nervous system. It really drives how your body responds, regardless of logic or intention. It's an automatic process. And now the third organizing principle of polyvagal theory is co-regulation. And that's that we are really wired to regulate through connection with others. It's a biological imperative. So when we're born, we don't have the capacity to self-regulate, right? We rely on another nervous system to teach us that. Regulation is not a solo project. And a safe presence, that voice or tone, right? That rhythm of another healthy, safe nervous system, a regulated nervous system, helps to downshift our nervous system when we're dysregulated. This is so important in trauma recovery and in chronic stress in general when we've been more in that mobilized fight or flight state for a long time. And our story that we tell ourselves or our emotional responses to things are really going to follow our state. So this means that your perception of the world is really shaped by your nervous system's current state. Dr. Porges often talks about a study where two people were looking at each other and they were using breath work to either get into a more regulated or dysregulated state. And depending on what state you were in, would really influence what you thought that person was thinking about you and whether, or even they would attribute positive attributions to the people across from them when they were in a more of a regulated state. So when you're regulated, life feels more manageable. When you're dysregulated, everything can feel like a threat. So, why do I teach patients to map their autonomic nervous system? Because it's so helpful to start to label this, right? Where are you right now? Ventral, sympathetic, dorsal? Are you activated? How does that state feel in your body, right? What helps you shift in and out? What's something that tends to trigger you? What's something that tends to help you feel more calm and regulated? This language is so important on our healing journey. Because once you name your state, then you can begin to change it, and story follows state. This self awareness is really central to healing. So let's talk a little bit about the science behind the SSP. So the SSP, or again, the Safe and Sound Protocol, targets the cranial nerves and the vagus nerve via the middle ear. So it's impacting your heart rate variability. It's improving your heart rate variability, which so many studies have shown is linked to improved vagal tone as well. It's improving your gut health and digestion, gut motility, immune modulation, and social engagement and emotional regulation. The filtered frequencies of the music engage the ventral vagal branch of the parasympathetic nervous system. Remember, we talked about ventral versus dorsal? And this increase in vagal tone helps to shift your body out of chronic defense. So, in studies, the SSP has been shown to improve heart rate variability, reduce trauma symptoms, support digestion, calm the HPA axis, and improve outcomes in children with autism and pandas. So, I will include some of the studies in the show notes if you're interested. And again, I just did a presentation on this. So, please reach out to me if you want to know more about it. I'm so excited about some of the research that's been coming out on this. So, why does this matter to me so much? How did I get so excited about this science of the SSP and polyvagal theory in general? Well, I was looking at it through the lens of Linlar and nature cure. And again, you can go back to our first few episodes on this. But Linlar taught us that every acute disease is the result of a healing effort of nature, a healing effort of our body and our innate ability to heal. And he described how lowered vitality, remember, morbid matter or obstructions or toxins, are causes of disease. And he really emphasized removing these obstacles to allow that vital force or vis to restore balance. In modern language, we call this chronic dysregulation. And the SSP supports our vis medicatrix naturae, or that innate inner healing power, by restoring safety. And I think this is one of the most overlooked determinants of health. We've talked all about how symptom suppression doesn't get us to long term healing. It certainly doesn't get us to prevention. But the SSP and essentially the understanding of our nervous system needing to be in a regulated state is really focused around resonance, right? It's focused around the energy of homeostasis and balance that allows our body to get into the healing state. So when we're using sound as vibrational medicine, we're activating the body's self-healing responses. We've known this for a very long time, right? Think about sound healing. Think about ancient wisdom and traditions that use sound as medicine. Think about oming and humming and chanting and how they're going to enhance vagal tone and heart rate variability. Just think about how you feel when you listen to a positive, happy song and it makes you want to move or dance, right? We know that sound is healing. And the SSP, I think, takes this a step further by really exercising our nervous system and helping it to go in and out of regulated and dysregulated and showing it how to be in that ventral vagal safe state. Now, if you layer that in with a safe therapeutic environment and a safe relationship with a practitioner that you're using the SSP with, this is a powerful, powerful tool. I can't help but relate this back to the principles of naturopathic medicine. So obviously we touched on vis medicatrix naturae and how the SSP can really awaken the body's innate healing wisdom, really restoring safety and that healing environment, the conditions for health. Tole causum. So there's so many root causes that really centrally lie in the nervous system being in chronic defense physiology. So if you can get your nervous system out of that chronic defense state, so many complex chronic illnesses have a better chance at healing, especially because they typically involve inflammation, and the vagus nerve is so key in controlling our response to inflammation. Now, we also have the fact that the SSP is very gentle and very safe and very non-invasive. You are listening to music. It can't get more safe and enjoyable than that. Yes, some of the filtered music can be a little bit triggering for people that have a trauma history. This is one of the things that actually drew me to it, because to me, that was a sign that, okay, there's something happening here and I want to look further into this research, right? But essentially, it's very non-invasive and enjoyable. I typically recommend that people do an adult coloring book, or if it's a child, that they just do a coloring book or sit outside in the grass and get the extra benefit of nature cure and healthy cortisol reduction and stress response by being out in nature. Now, we also have the fact that we're treating the whole body, right? Tole totem. So the vagus connects the gut, brain, heart, and mood, right? The SSP is supporting the whole being. And doctor as teacher. So as I'm giving patients a language around their nervous system, they're able to map their autonomic nervous system and track their shifts in state. It's very empowering. And you are essentially teaching people how to remove an obstacle to cure on their healing journey. And prevention. So resilient vagal tone is going to protect against burnout, autoimmunity, hormone imbalances, and help in digestion. In my lecture at the CNPA, I talked all about how the SSP really fits into the therapeutic order as well. So, when you're establishing those foundations for health and you're removing obstacles to cure and you're creating an optimal environment, you can go back and listen to the episode on the seeds of health, right? These are all the things that we're doing that are good for our being. So, we're sleeping, we're having a mindfulness or a breathwork practice, we're eating healthy foods, we're moving our body, we're hydrating, right? We're removing excess stressors. So these are all ways that we establish the foundations for health. Now, sometimes patients are unable to make some of those changes because they're dysregulated. And so the SSP can help to get them into a regulated state to be able to make some of those changes. Additionally, a lot of those changes, so for example, cleaning up your diet and taking out nervous system dysregulating things like sugar and alcohol, are going to work in the other direction and help to regulate your nervous system in that way. So they're so complementary in that sense, and they really do amplify one another. And I feel like if you are using something to help your nervous system get into that healing state, you're essentially fertilizing the soil so that those seeds of health can grow. You're giving them all of the tools and ingredients that they need to thrive. As you're stimulating that inner vis and that innate ability to heal, you can utilize the safe and sound protocol with things like breath work. Again, those long, slow exhales, right, that are going to improve our vagal tone and our heart rate variability. You can use things like hydrotherapy, whether it's a constitutional hydrotherapy or castor oil or Epsom salt baths. I'll very often have patients bookend their listening time, which can range from 5 to 30 minutes, sometimes even less. I'll have them bookend it with a regulating practice, like a breathwork practice. And as we move up that therapeutic order potentially, or again, you're working on many of those layers and levels at the same time, the SSP is essentially supporting weakened systems, whether that's your GI tract and that gut brain axis, hormones, immunity, right? And correcting structural integrity too. So maybe your vagal tone is impacting your posture or vice versa. There's some really cool studies on this as well. So when you're getting your body into that ventral vagal safe engaged state, you might also be doing things that impact your structural integrity like chiropractic adjustments, or maybe you're getting some acupuncture. But essentially, the SSP can be utilized throughout the therapeutic order, and it really does weave beautifully into the naturopathic principles as well. I'd love to share a couple examples of people that have really benefited from the SSP and the understanding of their nervous system. So I gave this example at the CNPA. I had a patient where we had kind of tried everything, and she would often, when I'm mentioning things like mind body practices, mindfulness, meditation, she would often just immediately shut those recommendations down. So we had done diet, we had done some counseling, we had used some supplements and herbs, we had done some homeopathy. And when I would mention, taking time to get quiet and do a breath work, it was just an immediate, no, I don't want to do that. I don't feel comfortable. So this is a great example of, if we haven't historically been in a regulated state, or maybe we didn't learn safe co-regulation when we were younger, it doesn't always feel comfortable to sit down and get into that safe space or state. And so we started with just some morning journaling and spending some time just being quiet. And that was a baby step that we took. And then we started with the connect music. So it wasn't even filtered. And we would do that for a few minutes along with the morning routine. And then I added the core, more filtered music to the routine. And by the end of the therapeutic listening, she was actually asking for other vagal toning exercises she could do. She had gone to some yoga classes. She had started to engage in some of the breath work that I had previously had in her protocol. And I genuinely can't think of anything else that we did different other than adding in a neural exercise to essentially work out her nervous system and show her it's okay. This ventral vagal safety state is okay. It doesn't have to feel scary. The way I really got into this work was with chronic or patients that had chronic GI issues. So another really great example is a patient who had chronic constipation. And again, we had done some RID protocols. We had worked on motility with herbs. We had reduced inflammation. And I knew there's a nervous system component to this. And so immediately when they started using the SSP, or I should say, I think it was about, it might have been about a week into it. So they certainly had at least 4 to 5 listening sessions. They started having bowel movements, and some of the things that we had been doing externally were almost moving things too quickly and too much. So we had to pull back on some of those because the SSP was really helping the nervous system to get into the state it needed to have those healthy bowel movements. And then I had another patient who they weren't in the place where they wanted to speak around the trauma that had impacted them. And of course, that is okay. And so we hadn't yet talked about her trauma history. But when I introduce the SSP to patients, I do always warn them if I have an idea that there might be something there we have not yet uncovered or spoken about, that listening can be a little bit triggering and that we do want to titrate. And so I did have a patient who was really, really, really tired after listening. And so she was someone where we had to do some other nervous system regulating work before she could even move on with the core protocol. So the SSP is gentle, but it's also really powerful. And it's not crisis intervention. It is titrated slowly, especially in patients with trauma or dissociation or neurodivergence. So I'm certainly careful with the pace at which I introduce it. But this powerful tool can also be the thing that helps our body get into the healing state that has been missing. And I talk a lot about how the SSP is a portal, not a pill. So we utilize it to, again, lay that foundational soil so that the seeds of health can grow and thrive and contribute to your healing journey. And so it pairs really, really well with things like breath work or a heart math coherence exercise, journaling, herbs that help with vagal tone nervines, or adaptogenic herbs for stress. Certainly co-regulation practices and setting is so important, right? So engaging with a practitioner you feel safe with, it really opens up the space to have a therapeutic relationship in safety with patients who haven't felt that before. So the SSP can be that terrain work that allows other modalities and tools to really land, to take root, and to blossom. So, last thought from me is that I want you to know that you're not broken. You might just be stuck in protection mode or in dorsal vagal shutdown mode. And there is a path back to healing. And it does begin with regulation. It begins with mapping your autonomic nervous system, knowing what state you're in, what state you're prone to go into, and just starting to recognize that so that you can pause and you can utilize tools to take a breath, intervene, and start working on regulation. And by that, I mean working on flexibility of moving in and out of safety, being able to come back to homeostasis and balance so that your mind body system can do what it's meant to do. And again, the Safe and Sound protocol is not a cure, but it's a portal to this. It's a portal back to safety, connection with other nervous systems, co-regulation, which is that biological imperative, right? To feel safe with another. And it is a way to give your body back its innate ability to heal itself. So if this resonated with you today, you can download my free vagal tone guide, and there are things that you can get started on today. It's not exactly the same as listening to the Safe and Sound protocol, but it's a really great start just to focus on your vagus nerve and a healthy nervous system response. And please share this episode with someone that you think might benefit from it, and you can download it and subscribe so you don't miss any. And until next time, we can change the world one regulated nervous system at a time.